How's it going, YouTube? Today I'm going to change the oil on a 2021 Jeep Cherokee. This one has the 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engine. So for changing the oil in this car, all you're going to need is 0W20 oil. You'll need a 5-quart jug and a 1-quart jug, as well as the I use a Purolator Boss oil filter. It's PBL 12222. That's the part number for the oil filter. So I'm going to use those parts to replace the oil in this car. Typically I do it every 5,000 miles. All right, so I got the car up on the ramps here. So for going about changing the oil, there's a couple of doors underneath. Luckily you don't need to remove the underbody tray at all. They come with some pre-installed doors. So this door right here is for the oil filter, and then there's also this door over here that's for the oil itself. All right, to remove these doors, you're going to need a 10mm socket. And I just typically remove this one and completely take it off. Same with this one as well, just so that the oil doesn't get on these doors themselves. All right, to remove the oil, you need a 13mm socket. And right here is the bolt for removing the oil drain plug. I'm not going to use my impact tool on this. I just use a standard 3/8 inch socket to remove. Typically this oil drain plug, it doesn't have like a crush washer or anything like that. So I've been accommodated to just keep reusing the one that it comes with. But I did decide at one point, probably like 20,000 miles ago, to just buy a new plug, just because the seal on this thing is kind of like built into the plug itself. And I just don't know if it'll ever just hold a seal its whole lifetime. I think it would. My wife's car, this is my wife's car, and she had a 2013 Jeep Patriot before this, and I just reused the plug over and over and over, and for over 130,000 miles the whole time I owned the car. So just undo it by hand and really put some pressure on the plug itself, pushing it in so that it doesn't just start spilling out. So what I do is I like to push in near the end here and then pull out at the last second. I also recommend when the oil is draining, also just loosen the cap here so that there's, air getting into the system above, so that it helps with the drainage. I also just ran the car for about 5 minutes before I got it up on the ramps here to help with it being warmer oil for it to drain quicker. All right, the oil is starting to slow down there, almost to a drip. So the next part is, once I get that plug put back in, I bought this oil filter adapter that helps with the removal of the oil filter. You can buy this at like AutoZone. The thing is they make these in different sizes. So I bought this for a car like 10 plus years ago. And so what I've come to realize is they don't make these perfect to fit. So this one's a little larger in size. So what I typically do to accommodate for the larger in size, I tend to just, pull a few sheets of these paper towels, and I fold them and just lay it on top of this adapter. And what I'll do is I'll lay the paper on top of it, and then I'll put my socket underneath and then use it to help bridge the gap in between using this tool and the filter. The paper towels help fill in all the gaps so that once you're trying to use torque to remove the oil filter, it'll help get it off. All right, now that there's just a drip going on here, I'm gonna throw the cap back on. And just tighten it by hand. So just wipe down the excess oil. My wrench, snug it down. I don't use a particular torque setting, but giving it a good, 1/16 to an 1/8 turns should be enough. I'd say 1/16 of a turn. There. All right, the next step is to get that oil filter out right there. What I like to do is this, as I mentioned earlier, is putting this paper towel on top of this oil filter removal tool to help kind of bridge the gap when I go to take this out so that it seats nicely on here. And then just use the wrench to take the filter off. These things should really only be hand tight on. So now that it's turning, you'll see that it'll start to spin. All right, once it starts to really become loose, you can take this whole thing out. At a certain point, once you've loosened it, oil will just start to flow right out of there. So get your oil drain positioned right underneath it, and then what you want to do is, now you can see it's by hand there. Just spin it real fast so that when oil comes out, it doesn't get all over your hand. And it'll just drip right into the pan. And so just wait for that to basically drain out, get a paper towel, wipe it down, and then just remove it all by hand at that point. All right, so here's the old filter here. Just make sure when it comes out that that black O-ring is also present with the filter as well. Sometimes they can get stuck up on the oil filter housing. So you want to make sure that that has come off with it so that you're not putting a new one on with another seal. So what you want to do with your new one, you want to get your oil that you bought. I tend to just stick a finger in here, get some oil on it, and lube up the new surface seal. And then we also want to just dump in the oil as well into the filter. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. And you want to fill this filter with oil. There's, so many things. I used to never fill it with oil before. I used to just screw it right back in, just dry. But just from watching YouTube videos of so many car YouTubers and everything, and they generally will fill this up with oil if it's, attached vertically underneath the car. And they also don't even know what's the proper method. So I just decided to make a switch and just start filling it with oil. So once you've done that, make sure this gasket is all nicely oiled up. And then once you get back underneath, we'll just clean the surface that this is gonna mate up to again. So then you're just going to hand tighten it back on. All right, so right here is where the oil filter screws onto is right underneath here. So just take a rag and clean off. This would be when you also make sure that seal wasn't stuck up on here. I just tend to just clean this all off, make sure there's no sort of debris. This surface here is where everything mates for that gasket. So I'm gonna put the filter in off camera just for the fact I don't want to balance the thing full of oil with one hand and hold my phone with another. So I'm gonna just bring the filter in and just twist it right on in there, and then just use your hands to tighten it and never use a tool. It should only just be hand tightened. And then all I use is my hands to tighten it down, and I don't use anything else. All right, now that I've screwed on the oil filter and everything is tight now down there, the next step is to just dump in, this car takes 5.5 quarts of oil of 0W20. So what I usually do is I just dump in this whole 5-quart bottle in completely, as so. And you gotta get a funnel as well for dumping it in, for just not allowing there to be a large mess. Usually I'll just dump this entire bottle in, and then I'll button everything up underneath the car, and then I'll lower the car off the ramps, and then I'll give it a little short drive to get it up to operating temperature. Let it sit for, maybe 10 to 20 minutes. That's when I'll usually check the oil level itself with the dipstick. And so usually it takes 5.5. So you should relatively see the oil roughly on the halfway point on the safe markings on the oil dipstick. So usually I'll just top it off to sometimes I'll just put in, it's either I'll put in like 5.25, or I'll actually go the full 5.5. Some cars, it really depends on where that dipstick is located in the oil pan and how far deep it is. My Audi takes probably 0.4 quarts less than what it says it does, and it usually always is reading full at that point. So it's always a little different with cars. So usually I just like to go half a quart low on what it says, and then just go from there to see how much I have to top off. All right, I just came back from a quick drive in the car to heat the car up. So one thing I'll show you as I wait for the car to cool down and for the oil to drain back in the pan, I can show you how to reset the oil change indicator. So what you got to do is you just got to have the key in the car. Don't start the car, but just turn it on in the run position. And then on the main screen here, you want to go down from speedometer to number 2. If you scroll through all the menus here, you want to go all the way to where it says the oil life. And so to reset the oil, so it says I'm at, I had 43% left to go on the oil change cycle. What I do is I usually just go to every 5,000 miles on the odometer. This thing I think probably does like 10,000 mile intervals. So I just don't believe in 10,000 mile intervals for oil changes. So you can see how my wife's car is at 75,000 miles roughly. So every time it hits a 5,000 mile mark on the odometer is when I'll try to do the oil change. So next time I'll do the oil change, will be at 80,000 miles, 85,000 miles, 90,000 miles, etc. So to get rid of this indicator so that it doesn't just go off randomly during the cycle, just go to that screen and then just hold the OK button to reset, and it should just change back to 100, and then you can just turn the car off. And that's how you reset your oil indicator. All right, so now that I've let the car sit and cool down for a little bit and let the oil drain back into the oil pan, I'm going to take the dipstick out, and this is where you'll be able to see how full or where the line is at. So roughly, I don't know if you can see it, It's really hard to see sometimes when you get an oil change where the line is, so you have to really reflect off the light. Sometimes I like looking at the back. You can kind of see where a line is almost formed. But it's roughly at the, let's see if I can focus more. It's roughly at the, I would say 30% mark of up that hat. The crosshatch is the safe zone. And you want to be inside of this cross hatching. So there's like a hole on the one side and the hole on the other side, and this hole on the right side is the full side. And usually this little notch in the dipstick is where that's like the very, very maximum fill line is. So like if you ever were to go above that hatch, you're you would need to drain some out. But they try to get you to stay within this hatching area. So I'm roughly about, I don't know, it's between 30 and 50% full up that line. So usually what that hatching is that usually indicates 1 quart of adding. So if it was at the very bottom at that one dot on the left, if the oil was only up to there, that would indicate that you would need to fill the engine with 1 quart of oil. And then if you pour in 1 quart, it should put you at the right dot. So usually what I like to do, I don't like to go very full to the top. I kind of get it to like, I don't know, 80% up. So if you think about where I was like at that 30% mark, if I throw in a half a quart of oil, I should easily be at that 80% up the crosshatch mark. So I'm just going to pour in half a bottle of this oil in, half a quart in, and I should be all set. All right, I've filled in about half a quart of this in. So the car should basically be all set. This will be a good time to also just check underneath the car as well to make sure there isn't any sort of crazy amount of drips, just to make sure that you've secured everything. I'm not seeing anything down here, just some residual oil from earlier. So yeah, basically just keep this bottle on the shelf and, you know, check your car every once in a while to make sure that it's not leaking. Really keep a good eye out on if your car's got a leak at all, and you will be able to tell within your driveway or your garage. But yeah, that should be about it. Just keep checking it every once in a while throughout the 5,000 miles, and you should be good to go. All right. If you got any questions, just leave them down in the comments. All right. Thanks.